So Nancy's a couple minutes out, so if it's okay with you guys, we'll just wait for her to come. It's going to be a pretty quick meeting, so. I hope she's closer than California. Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 6th meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Board. If I'd ask you to stand for the pledge and a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have roll call from the left?
Brian Collegian.
Nancy Austin.
Carl S. Moore.
Scott Marlowe.
Tom Panzella.
Peggy Cooney.
Jim Quish, and we have Meg and David staff. We have no old or new business, but we do have a public hearing to be closed by September 10th, 2019. We have to have a vote by October 15th. Proposed change to the City of Milford zoning regulations, self-storage usage and facilities, OD Zone DO10, 25, Zone BB, Zone BD, Zone BD1, Zone SCD, Zone LI, Zone ID, Zone HDD, Zone WDD. Where am I now? I've got so much of these. Zone CDD1, Zone CDD2, CDD3, CDD4, CDD5, MCDD zone, and ICD zone. Article 11, Section 11.2, other terms proposed by the P&Z Board, and its tracking number is 3-19. David, would you speak to this?
Just to refresh your memories, we had a request, and we've observed over time that we're getting inquiries for self-storage uses that the requests or inquiries have been made in our major commercial zones. And it's the thinking of the city that that's not the highest and best use for properties along our commercial corridors, which are some of the highest paying commercial properties in terms of taxes. So the thinking in the proposal is to allow this kind of use, but limit it in this case to the HDD zone, which is a mixed-use sort of industrial zone. This way, we would be in keeping with the plan of conservation development and keeping our commercial corridors vital corridors, which we probably wouldn't have. We would lose some of that vitality by putting these uses, in those corridors, since they really are a low-traffic sort of use that gobbles up large amounts of land.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so if anybody would like to speak, please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Julie Nash. I'm the Economic and Community Development Director for the City of Milford. I want to thank Mr. Sulkus and the board for your attention to this matter. I think it's important. Like David said, in keeping with our POCD, I think we have reached the saturation point, and I want to thank you for moving along with this. I am in support of these regulatory changes, and I thank you.
Does anyone else like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Thomas Lynch, and I'm an attorney here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street with my office. And I'm here tonight representing CT Self-Storage of Connecticut. I represented CT Self-Storage back in 2015, presenting an application to you at that time for a special exception and a site plan approval for the construction of the facility that my client built ultimately at 33 Schoolhouse Road. It's a facility with over 106,000 square feet. My client has invested over $6.5 million in the purchase of the property and the development of the property. My client currently pays close to $120,000 a year in property taxes. So back in 2015, we came before you with an application to allow this development in the CDD2 zone, which was, playing within the rules. But since that time, there's been more or less a proliferation of other self-storage facilities that have been built, both in Milford and Stratford. And my client has asked me to come here tonight after reviewing the regulations as proposed and asking you to go along with the city's request, both from the zoning office and from the office of the community development director, to make the appropriate changes to limit these facilities in the HDD zone. That zone, as David said, is more or less a mixed use area that does encourage development along industrial lines. It does encourage warehouse facilities, and on a going forward basis, we feel that that's an appropriate change to make to the zoning regulations. We'd ask that you would vote to adopt the changes as presented. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Marlowe.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Sulkus. Just curious more than anything, how do you know how occupied the two newest ones are?
I don't know. And that really didn't come into our end. Yeah. I can at least give you some idea about demand. I don't know if it's actually based on an actual need, but one of the things that prompted us to look at this change is that there are currently some large vacant commercial buildings on Route 1 that inquiries are being made about. And when you look at the plan of conservation and development and you look at the overall development of the city, those sites really lend themselves to other forms of development, which I believe would be better for the city in the long term than putting in a self-storage use if that came in. And self-storage uses are very long-term uses. Once they're there, they're there. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose some of these prime developable or redevelopable properties to a use that again doesn't really conform with our POCD and I think the future goals for our development along Route 1.
Any other questions or comments? I have one for either Julie or David, whoever wants to respond, or both possibly. What was the thinking of not including a light industrial zone in where we would allow self-storage?
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, if I can just back up with just some data that we had discussed last time. And these are numbers I used from the self-storage community. Milford is home to approximately 53,000 residents, and self-storage units represent hundreds of thousands of square footage. The self-storage industry recommended standard for need is approximately 7 square feet per capita. Out of the 7 facilities in Milford, 5 represent 469,000 square feet of space. Using these numbers, if every man, woman, child needed a self-storage unit, we would need 371,000 square feet to accommodate every single resident, which we far exceed. I have a lot more data too. I can continue reading, but one of the questions I did ask to some of the folks was occupancy, and that's a number that they weren't willing to give.
David, is in terms of prohibiting a self-storage facility in a light industrial zone, it didn't really seem to be consistent with the logic of like the Post Road. It's obviously different than that. Why was that not included?
We have many more light industrial zones, and when they're utilized, I mean, they perform, again, a vital function to the community by providing places for a lot of startup and small companies. A lot of them have turnover, but then new businesses come in. And I think it was felt that by opening it up to those zones, that would create even more of these units, perhaps farther afield. But, that's something we can, look at further if that's something the board, wishes us to do. The thinking with the HDD is it's a fairly large zone. It's fairly underutilized, which made that attractive, where most of the LI zones are developed.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
In regards to building, you mentioned that these more than likely would be long-term usage. Are there any chances for any short-term buildings created or for storage?
Well, again, we have, is it five or six, Julie, of these uses already here in the city, some of which go back, 30, 40 years, some of which, this board approved, only a few years ago. And that's, again, a particular land use type. So once you allow someone to do something on a site, you're allowing them to do it on the site. So you can't one day say, oh, okay, well, you can go over here and use this site, but in 5 years we want you out. Because that's not how, a special exception would work, because what happens is that permission runs with the land. So we don't even want to risk it. You know, we want, you know, the marketplace to know that, you know, it's not a viable, from our perspective, in terms of our planning and our plan of conservation development, you know, it's not a use that we want to see in these areas. We want to see the uses that the regulations call for.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just to confirm, we have 7 self-storage facilities at this time.
Go ahead, yeah.
Mr. Sulkus, in doing this, if we were to just go to the HDD, do you see that that would be attractive or viable to a self-storage company coming in, or are they looking for that they want more exposure?
I can't imagine that there's any business of really any kind that wouldn't want to be, exposed and well seen. I mean, I think that's just the nature of any kind of business, location, location, location. But at the same time, it's the kind of use, I don't think you're driving down the street and you go, oh, wow, look, there's a self-storage facility, let's use it. It's the kind of use where you need it, you're going to find out where they are, and you're going to go to it.
Any other questions or comments? I don't think we need rebuttal time, so I would close the public hearing. Does anyone see a reason why we shouldn't vote on this tonight? Seeing no one, I would hear a motion. Mr. Collegian.
I move to approve as presented the self-storage usage and facilities, OD zone, DO 1025 zone, BB zone, BD zone, BD1 zone, SCD zone, LI zone, ID zone, HDD zone, WDD zone, CDD1 zone, CDD2 zone, CDD3 zone, CDD4 zone, CDD5 zone, MCDD zone, ICD zone, Article 11, Section 11.2, other terms proposed by the Planning and Zoning Board with a tracking number of 3-19, with an effective date, if it's passed, of August 30th, 2019.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Austin. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Liaison reports, we have none. Subcommittee reports? None.
Just, Mr. Sulkus, I know last time I had talked about regulation books. Do you know when that will be?
Yes, we will do it at the next meeting. We have them, they're printed. We just have to remember to bring them over. They're done.
And along with that, last time I had said that we were going through, Mr. Sulkus and I were going through some of the regulations that have been on the table for a while. And we've gone through some of them, and we're setting up another meeting to go through them, and then we would meet as a committee and review what we've gone through.
So then at our first meeting of September, we'll have a subcommittee meeting.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Approval of the minutes. We have a motion? Motion and a second. Staff report.
So this month, we approved a lot line adjustment for Zero Nells Road, which was to facilitate a 24.58 acre transfer of land to the DEP for preservation along the Housatonic River. Basically what this was is one of the Beard properties that abutted about, I think it was 9 homes, and over the years those homes had garages and sheds and fences that basically encroached onto this Beard property. So the state has been very anxious because they've been wanting to buy this land or acquire this land for a while. Mr. Beard could have, used the tools at his legal disposal to try to get the people to remove their sheds and their fences and everything. But what they decided to do was to, where there were these encroachments, basically give those people that land because there was such a large parcel that they were dealing with. So basically, for the state to acquire this land, these encroachments had to be taken care of. So lot line adjustments were done for those encroachments. Also, as part of that, the city had a right-of-way going through this parcel to get, I believe it's the main, one of the main trunk lines to the Housatonic water treatment plant. And that wasn't originally done properly in terms of the land records of where the easement is, and that was all taken care of as part of this as well. So the end result is the encroachments were taken care of, the neighbors got some extra land, the city got its easement maps corrected, and the state of Connecticut ended up getting 24.58 acres of land that they're going to conserve along the Housatonic.
Thank you. Actually, we do, the chair report will just be that, and it goes back to liaisons. David, you did provide me with a list of the traditional liaison positions. Did you provide that to everyone, or was that just to me?
I had put that in the board packets.
Okay.
The prior drop boxes.
So I would ask everybody to consider that, and at the next meeting, if you have any interest in doing, becoming a liaison, please ask, or you can ask David or ask me on the sidebar. I guess that's legit for them to ask that. And so I hope that there is some interest. And our business today here is done. Motion to adjourn.